Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. We appear to be entering a bubble, which often happens in any time of an economic boom. I'm noticing, and you most likely too, friends, acquaintances, family members who are suddenly investing in stocks who wouldn't usually. And now I'm seeing them get into crypto investing too. There's a popular anecdote about Joseph Kennedy, the father of JFK. In 1929, he was having his shoes shined, and the shoe shine boy started giving Kennedy stock tips. Supposedly, Kennedy then thought if the shoe shine boys are giving stock tips, then it's time to get out of the market, and he sold his shares. These days, they say that if you experience a similar scenario with your taxi driver or Uber driver now, and start giving you stock tips and advice, then you should dump your shares too. Essentially, if everyone is investing, then there'll be no more money soon to keep inflating the stock price, and it will eventually have to crash. I very much experienced the dot-com bubble firsthand. I was one of the pioneer SEOs back then, even before Google was around, back in 1998. It was my job to get sites ranked high in the search engines. There were so many dot-coms coming out with an IPO, they would have valuations above $20 million, but only doing something like $80 of sales online a day. Entrepreneurs could just start up these sites and get funding, as no one wanted to miss out, as there was so much FOMO. We thought that e-commerce was going to take over retail. But when the dust settled, they were all more or less riding on Amazon's coattails. Not that Amazon didn't get hurt during the dot-bomb crash either. They suffered. And Google launched their IPO shortly after that crash as well. But these fly-by-night dot-com startups were mainly scams. One famous one I recall was Pixelon. Michael Fenn was the founder, and he started a company that was meant to offer high-quality video over the internet. Obviously a great product, particularly for 1998, but it was a fugazi. They didn't have the technology. It's all to do with marketing. The louder they are, the worse they tend to be. So Pixelon was going to launch by streaming a concert online. They called it iBash, and it supposedly cost $16 million for one big party, which was even more money back in 1999. Some of the bands playing were Kiss, The Who, Faith Hill, Sugar Ray, Tony Bennett, and more. No joke, this actually happened. Fast forward to today, and does it remind you of anything? I'm not sure how many of you were following the entire Nikola fiasco. The former CEO, Trevor Milton, used to continually talk about how amazing his party would be called Nikola World. In other words, the more you spend on noise and marketing, the less credible you're likely to be, as the money should be spent on building the company, a classic way we view Tesla. If you have a good product and company, you don't need to spend a fortune convincing people. The product itself does that. Okay, so are we in the EV bubble? Well, the barrier to entry in starting an EV is significantly larger than setting up an e-commerce website. Therefore, we don't see quite so many EV companies popping up as we did in the dot-com bubble. But a lot of investors regret missing out on Tesla and still need to ride the next wave. NIO is considered the number 2 EV company, and their stock price has been even higher than GM's at one stage. But it's all about marketing. These EV startups need to convince the market that they have found their niche, how they've differentiated themselves away from Tesla, just like Pets.com was different from Amazon.com before it went under. Some of these startups you get in a bubble are total scams, and others perhaps genuinely do try and think they have a chance to be part of the industry. I would say a company like Rivian might be genuinely trying to make it into the EV market, whereas I can't see how Nikola had a chance. And hard to tell with Lucid at this stage. But they're all riding on Tesla's coattails either way. Tesla has shown how large the market potential is, so if any competitors can also get a piece of it, then they'll make a fortune too. But anyway, like I said, the barriers to entry to start an EV manufacturing company are considerably high, and pretty hard to convince people they're genuine. Most of us could see that Nikola was going to crash, for example, but creating a cryptocurrency, that requires a lot less capital and is easier to be convincing. The cryptocurrencies just need to differentiate themselves in the market as some other type of crypto that is different from the others. As far as I can tell, Bitcoin is the only legitimate crypto, just like Amazon was the only legitimate e-commerce website. Most of you are likely familiar with the term DeFi, which is decentralized finance, meaning a form of finance that doesn't rely on banks, exchanges, brokerages, No middlemen, negligible fees. Except, in my opinion, I still don't call that decentralized. For example, with Ethereum, you're still at the mercy of Vitalik Buterin, the founder. He could literally decide to add more coins, thus inflating the currency, which is what governments have been doing with their currencies over the millennia. There is still control over the currency. This is why I love Bitcoin. It's properly decentralized in a very real way. No one can control it. I compare it to like trying to control air. But admittedly, Bitcoin was not the crypto to invest in this year. All the others are outperforming it on a massive scale. Obviously, Dogecoin is the one we're all hearing about the most, particularly in the Tesla community, somewhat being endorsed by Elon Musk. But don't forget what crypto it was that Tesla bought. Bitcoin, not Dogecoin. And what crypto Tesla accepts payments for. Again, Bitcoin, not Dogecoin. Although Elon has now literally asked on Twitter if people would like to buy Teslas with Dogecoin. But I think if that did come to fruition, Tesla would convert the Dogecoin to cash, unlike how they'll hold Bitcoin. We can only speculate as to why Elon is so obsessed with Dogecoin. Some people think he is testing out what it would be like for Tesla to launch their own crypto and see how much influence he has. Some even say Elon bought lots of Dogecoin himself and is trying to inflate it, but I really don't believe that's true. Although I think he did buy some for his baby, so Elon could say on Twitter that his baby is a toddler hodler, which is pretty funny. But remember, on Saturday Night Live, Elon literally said Dogecoin was a hustle. To be honest, I think it's all gone quite insane. I'm also surprised how Bitcoin hasn't been moving much lately when all the altcoins have. It must have some sort of pent-up demand by now. Look, I am in no way suggesting you sell your Dogecoin now and it's about to crash. I'm saying it looks a lot like what happened in the past. It's human psychology, and some people know how to take advantage of it. To be honest, I think there is a chance it could go even higher, to even further levels of insanity. You see, the dot-com bubble thought e-commerce was going to replace retail, which, as we know, is a very big industry. But what do you think crypto is going to replace? Banks, maybe? Finance, perhaps? Those are pretty big industries too. But what if it goes to another level and decides to replace money? Well, there are various stages for this to occur. One stage is replacing gold as a store of value. There is something like $10 trillion of gold in the world. Bitcoin is currently a little over 1 trillion. Therefore, it still has a long way to potentially go. A lot of Bitcoin investors think this is where it's headed. However, a lot also think it will replace all currencies and be the one global currency. And they estimate this value more around $100 trillion. But all these altcoins are also in the industry too, so they could potentially go many times higher again. But my opinion is they will inevitably all crash when the market crash comes. But whether Bitcoin will crash is another question. In market crashes, investors like to move to gold. Due to so much more uncertainty in the markets and currencies, they want to store their value, hence the purpose of gold. But this time, Bitcoin may have replaced gold as a store of value, which means potentially Bitcoin could go up in a crash, as it's simply a much better version of gold. Anyway, this is just how I see it, going by similar times in history. Just remember, there was a time when the market had gone so crazy, they actually bought tulip bulbs for the price of houses. Eventually people realized it's easy enough to grow more tulip bulbs, but now Holland is still famous for tulips. As for the dot-com bubble, it took 15 years for Microsoft to recover to its dot-com peak. And Japan property prices are still not high as today as they were at the peak of their bubble in the 80s. But anyway, like I say, I am in no way suggesting how you should invest. This could be interpreted as cryptos will keep going more insane, or that they will inevitably crash. And this is just one person's opinion, and this person totally missed out on Dogecoin too. The point I'm trying to illustrate is that we're entering some very crazy times, so just be careful. Thanks for listening, please hit the thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe.